Good morning, Super.
Started without me.
Good morning, Super.
Good morning, James. How are you today?
Good, good.
This
It-
morning.
this morning, good. This morning, good. I'm sounding like a text message. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Okay, great. I think we're both having a pretty busy day today, so it's great that we had a moment to talk about this issue because it's a pretty important topic, I think. It's just difficult to talk about. But I thought that maybe we could try to understand what this is and just try to figure out how we could help other, supers, part-time super resident managers in this, with this issue. But it's about attitude.
Yeah, attitude. That's a big one.
Yes, it's a big one. And it's attitude, I mean, what is attitude, right?
Right.
Like, what's a good attitude? And the reason why it's important is because, a good attitude will help you get hired easily, right? It can help get you hired. And a bad attitude or a negative attitude is definitely something that's going to lead to getting fired.
Yeah, and also just your quality of life, your work life. If you have a bad attitude, everything's gonna look all bad. You'll be miserable. But
Right.
if you have a positive attitude, like a good vision
Right.
of things, then you will feel good about it. You'll make that kind of makes you grow. Gives that foundation of growth. You're willing to grow
Right.
as
Well,
well.
yeah, definitely. I think that you're at peace with your inner self if you have a positive attitude, and that can impact, how you approach everyday stress and the things that happen. That's what you talked about, right?
Yes, and it's always better to have a positive attitude than a negative attitude.
Well, you kind of hit it on the head because the actual definition of attitude is a settled way of thinking or feeling about someone or something. And typically it's reflected in the person's behavior. So there's two components to attitude that is interesting here. And it's how you feel inside. That means what you're feeling, right? And then that changes to your behavior that other people see. So there's an inner component, which happens on the inside, and then there's an outer component, which is visible to everyone else.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So it's great. So what I thought I'd talk about, maybe we could talk about in this episode, is maybe pull up like 5 top like negative attitudes that can affect your work, right? Because we all know what positive attitude is. Positive attitude, examples of a positive attitude is being reasonable or fair, good-natured, friendly, open to criticism, trusting, caring. I'm actually reading from a definition, there's a website with positive attitudes. Willing to collaborate.
All the good things.
All the
that you
good
can
things. So
think of.
yeah, and I think when we talk to building managers and we ask them what's important to you in a part-time super, or what's important to you in the super, attitude comes up. The only thing is that we're trying to figure out what attitude means, and it's so broad
Yes.
that so I thought maybe maybe instead of pointing out good attitude, I can point out just in my experiences of having, met a lot of building supers and been in situations where I get to hear what boards and managers get to say about supers that they're having problems with, give you an idea of some of the biggest, I guess some of the most serious negative attitudes that have eventually impacted the super's what do you call that, security with a job, or ultimately made him subject to dismissal.
I see. So these are kind of like the most common attitude problems that boards and managers, maybe residents, complain about.
Maybe that's a better way. Complaining, yeah, because I'm sure part of that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so you've been in this industry for a long time. You started out without knowing what's a good attitude or bad attitude, and I think you really can't look this up on the internet. No one really explains when you're a super what's a good attitude and what's a bad attitude. So this, I think, with the collection of your data, and it will be really helpful for the supers who are starting out, and also for other supers who are also very experienced to be careful of some of these situations or the attitudes.
And that's excellent, because I think people who have been in this industry, this would be a great refresher.
Yeah.
Because we forget sometimes and we slip, because negative feelings don't sometimes happen right away, but they creep up on us.
Right.
That before we know it, we become more negative.
Right.
To the point that it's hard for people to work with us.
Yeah. So also, I've been in situations where I feel like I didn't do anything wrong, but
Right.
I got some complaints about my behaviors. So maybe one of these situations might kind of guide me where I could have done wrong in
Right.
the past.
Right.
Because sometimes I was just being myself.
Right.
I was being really honest, but I was very true to my feelings.
Right.
Very true to my feelings.
I was being authentic.
Yeah, I was
to myself.
Yeah. And I thought I was doing a good job, but in the end, it just became a problem for me. And maybe for those who are listening, it could be like a good example.
Yeah.
Or kind of like a guiding stone.
Yeah.
Maybe if someone got into a situation where just couldn't explain what went wrong, maybe it's because of your attitude.
Right. Maybe it's because of that.
Yeah.
Which is how you think about what your feeling is about that thing.
Right.
That comes out through your behavior.
Right.
And then, I think that's, so I think we talked about last time, somewhere in one of our episodes, you had mentioned that being professional means on the outside, because there's two components, inner component and an outer component, the way that you behave and show your expression to others, and then how you really feel inside.
Right.
And when they come together, that's your attitude. And that you were saying, no matter how you feel inside, make sure that your outside behavior is professional.
Yeah.
So
at
that
least.
keep it positive on the outside, at
Right.
least. Yeah. And I think in this episode, I want to talk more about maybe I want to talk about how to look at these situations as ways, look at these examples as ways to help you fix what's happening on the inside, you know? So, okay. And
All
as
right.
I'm drinking my cup, I realized that my cup has an attitude. It's actually not mine. It's it says Mr. Always Right. So, so, so Mr. Always Right. That could be a negative attitude as well.
Yeah. That is so true.
Okay, actually says, yeah, it says it actually says, I think it looks like the spelling says Mrs. Always Right.
Oh,
So I borrowed
agree. I agree to that. All right, let's get into this.
Okay, let's get into this. Okay, so the first example, so top 5 true life examples of negative attitudes that can affect your work. And the first one, whoops, give me 1 second here. The first one is there was a situation where the super was asked to give his opinion about a certain work that was a project that was going on in the maintenance part of the building, and he was asked to give his professional opinion, and he did a lot of research on it, and he developed a particular strategy and going on about this, and it was a pretty big building, so it was going to be a big project. And he started to develop his own opinion on how to do things and what to prepare. And he went into the board meeting, made a presentation, and then left the meeting. A couple weeks later, the board decided to take a completely different, opposite approach. So the RM, got really upset, and he felt really disrespected. And he felt that they didn't listen to, because they didn't listen to him, that this was like an ultimate on the face. This was an ultimate slap in the face. And he ended up saying he's not going to help the building anymore, and he's not going to put that much time in, that he felt that his time was wasted, and it really impacted him. He felt down, and he felt that the board was contriving against him. Contriving means he's working against him. So it just killed his drive to participate. And I think that is something that, ended up impacting how he appeared to the board members later. So later on, the manager and the board members felt that he was apathetic, like he was indifferent. He didn't care about the project happening, because the project unfolded in a way that was not the way that he wanted. He ended up not really caring in how it was handled, and so I think the board, definitely the board and definitely the property manager, felt that he wasn't participating as much as he should, and that caused a big rift between him and the board.
I see. But my first question would be, so was the board's approach, that was something different from him, or it was a wrong approach? Did they get the problem fixed at all, or?
You mean the actual work?
Yeah.
Eventually they got it done.
Oh, okay.
But
so
they didn't get it.
It was a different way of doing things.
It was a different way of doing things. Yes.
I see. But hearing this story, I do feel the super. I mean, I'm sure he put a lot of effort into making the presentation. I mean, presentations are so hard, and to announce these in front of the board members and the manager, it's nervous. I'm sure it took a lot of time for him to do that. But it turns out, like, what the super did was, just complete waste of time. That I get it. Like, I totally get what the super would be feeling. I would be really frustrated as well.
Right.
I mean, like, all the effort that I put in, time, energy, and maybe sometimes if I took extra time to work on this just for the board.
Right.
And it could be frustrating, disappointing. But I do agree that that should not affect his overall behavior to
Dedication
the building.
to the building.
Yeah. And I feel like his attitude could have been better. So could you explain more about that?
Yeah. So in a case like that, I mean, your attitude becomes passive aggressive, right? Passive aggressive is when you're being aggressive by not doing something, and I think that's it, right? Being aggressive by or being challenging by holding yourself back purposefully. Maybe he was hoping for something to go wrong as proof that his way was right, but it was maybe not. Maybe it was very innocent. But I think the property manager or others that were seeing this can assume those negative things from his outward behavior. And in this case, his inward behavior, he was pissed, he was upset, he had pride, and I think it was more about, of course, it was the time that he spent, but it was about pride, right? We want to be able to present our expertise on something, and then have the people. We believe that by following it, they're respecting it. By following what we've recommended, that they're respecting us. And I think that was the mistake. I think it came from a core of feeling that he was just disrespected. And instead of that, your job is one of the ways I think to overcome this is to always assume that you're making a pitch to the board, that you're not giving them direction, or how should I say that? You're not giving them an order. You're not telling them what to do. You're making a pitch, which means you're making a presentation in hopes that they will follow your thing. And if they don't follow it, it's your job to find out, right? Because if you have board members, you have different personalities, different styles, different sense of importance and priority, different sense of risk, like what they feel that they should carry in terms of the risks of the project. So you have different ideas about the project. Some of the board members may love your thing. Some of the board members may not, and they may go with a different direction. But it's really up to you to try to find out what that is. If it bothers you, because you want to, then you'll be able to better understand what the board is looking for the next time around, right? It just makes you a more informed super, knowing what the different attitudes and the concerns of the board members are. And also, here's a trick. You need to, since you have to look at this as persuasion, as when you're presenting, you're trying to persuade. You're not going to win every time. And one of the things that you should practice, if it means a lot to you, is try to frame it in your presentation in the interest of the board. That means that think through their eyes and try to frame this as what's beneficial to the board or to the building. Maybe you're thinking in terms of the building, but sometimes board members have their own set of priorities. So you want to think about, one way to do it is to say like, this is beneficial to the board because it would eliminate, liability if someone gets hurt, which would eventually impact the building's budget. You want to use this type, this type of equipment rather than the other, because using this will save money, which in the long run will save this much in fuel for the building. And frame it in the interest of them, because they're not I think a lot of us make a mistake when we're at a board meeting to frame it in the interest of us. Like I think this is the best way to do it because I think that this is and my team will and what they're hearing is that they're not hearing the right things that are or beneficial to them. So that's one thing that you can do, one example. But I think the takeaway here is not to feel like it's about respect. I think once you do that, once you can like understand that on the inside and feel better about that, your attitude or your outward behavior will change when you go to the board meeting. And let's say you have to supervise the project in a way that you didn't agree to or you didn't want to. It will help you give you the peace of mind and the clearness of mind without all this negativity to help get you back into your position of helping the board execute that project.
Those are excellent points. So I agree that the efforts and the time should not be about you. Like it's the presentations and these offers. I say offers. There are suggestions about the projects, so it's not focused on you.
Right.
So you have to put yourself out from that project,
right,
and you have to focus more on the problem solving itself. It's not really about you.
Right.
Yeah, and also admit the fact that you might be very narrow-minded as well.
What?
I mean, you're talking as
I'm offended by that, and I'm gonna leave this podcast right now.
No, but there could be some things that you don't know.
Right.
I mean, especially between the boards, they have their own experiences of repairs, and they have their own issues of insurance, liabilities, or a lot of things. Sometimes politics. There are a lot of factors you might not be seeing outside.
Right.
So even if your presentation doesn't get accepted, it might not be because of how bad your presentation was. It might be something else.
Yeah,
so
sure.
So don't take it personally, right?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. That's what I was saying, was that there may be something that that is beyond your control,
different,
and has nothing to do with how great your presentation is.
Right.
That could have done that. So just don't take those things personally. I think feeling personal about those things ends up impacting your inner self, and then that comes out as a negative attitude.
Right.
Of apathy, which means you don't care about the project, that you're actually passive-aggressively not helpful, and it's just a bad thing. And of course, all that negativity snowballs into more and more problems. So you want to really catch that, nip that in the bud, stop yourself, switch your mental framework to see it more positively, and then go ahead. And another example of that is when you have certain supers who are stickler for rules, right? And the rule's the rule to them, and there's very little flexibility in them in how they approach the rules and how they feel that shareholders should approach the rules. So when something happens and they feel like a rule is broken, they'll be upset.
Yeah, I totally understand that, because the super probably follows the rules every single day.
Right.
Every single day, and you're a board member, and you can just neglect the rules just so easily like that.
Right.
These are super important.
Right. Well, board members will sometimes they'll make a decision by themselves, and they'll say, okay, this person broke the rules. Let's just move on ahead, right?
Yeah, and I would feel betrayed.
Right. And that's what supers feel betrayed as well, because they're like, I'm here to uphold your rules, and here you go breaking them. What that ends up doing is I guess could create the impression that you're not going to care for the rules in general. I think that, you know, if I recall this problem, this incident, eventually a very experienced property manager came down and spoke to that super and just really just said, look, I know it's important to you, I know that, but let's look at the bottom line. The bottom line is it's going to be worse. This shareholder would have been pissed off and they would have, you know, done something, sued the board or sued the building. So we got this done. And so we appreciate that you were looking out for the building and, you know, and I think he felt better. But I think that's, as you said, you got to look at the bigger picture with that. And even if the board decides to, you know, let this go, like let a person break the rules, even though you're making sure that people are sticking to them, I think there has to be a flexibility. You know, there has to be a flexibility that you have or that you develop inside where you allow for these things without just saying, I'm not going to care about the rules anymore. Or I'm not, you know, the board doesn't care, I don't care. And to develop that sort of bitterness, because ultimately that will lead also to the perception that the super is not, you know, he's upset and that he's no longer trying to help us maintain these rules.
Right. I mean, in this experience, I think the super was very lucky to have a nice manager.
Yeah. It was an amazing manager. I'll give the name to those supers who are curious to know who this manager is.
But you know, just looking back to that incident, I think, you know, even if the manager said, "Oh, I'm sorry, can you understand this?" But just seeing the bigger picture, I mean, the manager's kind of babying the super, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there was an amount of soothing his ego.
Yeah, so I think before that, I mean, if you had a better attitude, maybe things could have gone more smoothly. Just, I don't think it would look really good in a professional setting where your boss has to say, you know, calm down, I'm sorry. I mean, he says that outside. He or she may say that, oh, I totally understand, I'm sorry, could you please do this, very nicely.
Right.
But inside his or her mind, it's like, it's so hard to work with him.
Yeah.
And if he ever needs a super, he or she will remember this incident. Oh,
right.
You know, it was such a pain to go down there, you know, myself and really persuade this person. Do I really want this guy in another job, another building? Probably not.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, those cases, it's you know, you can't really help having a good pride, but it's not always being told yes.
Yeah. I mean, remember what you said when we first talked about it? You said, oh, I would be pissed too. I think that's the initial response all of us have.
Yeah.
And so, but I think when we let it get out of control, it becomes something that becomes harmful to us, to our careers, to our future. That's why it's important to, if you've ever gone through something like this, or if you ever go through something like this, remember to stop yourself from getting upset.
Yeah.
And check yourself
Yeah.
at the door, and just make sure that you figure a way to fix the inner side. I mean, on the outer side, you might be professional and everything, but eventually your inner side will catch up with the outer side. So try to re-hear what we just talked about, or re-listen to what we just talked about, and try to make yourself feel less upset by that.
Yeah. And a lot of times, it's not about winning your opinion.
Yeah, that's true. Some of us are competitive.
Yeah, and you know what? It's the dirty. I guess the dirty truth. I don't know if this is the right word, but not everything goes smoothly in when you're working with other people. Sometimes you gotta suck it up.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
A lot of people suck it up too.
Right.
But it's your choice. You get to choose if this kind of bad feelings going to not ruin your career but affect your career
Affect your career, definitely.
in
Yeah.
a bad way.
Right.
Or are you going to turn this into an opportunity?
Right. And the opportunities would be not only developing like internal mechanisms to prevent you from slipping down this negativity, but it's also like learning how to be more persuasive, as you're saying.
More
right?
giving.
More giving, right?
Yeah, and think about this incident in a different way. So your presentation didn't get chosen. Then you know what? You get to learn other ways to do it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, you're learning. If you kind of switch your mind into this as a learning process. All right, this is a new approach. I'll give it a try.
Right. Right.
And it is your job to focus on that project too.
Right.
So you're learning something.
Right. Which actually leads us to learning something is part of the solution for the next one, which is where they didn't, like, let's say there was a side job that a side project that the board was considering farming out to other vendors, and of course they asked the RM to put in a bid himself, and the RM was thinking this is a great opportunity to make additional income, and he put a price together, and he felt that the board would probably favor him because guess what, he's at the building all the time, and there's nothing.
He helps out the board.
Yeah, something he helps out the board, and
I've been really good. I've been a good boy.
Right. And nothing's better than a warranty that's right there.
Yeah, I won't run away.
You won't run away. You're not going to close your company.
Yeah.
So there was a really, deep expectation that he was going to get this job, and it was going to be good money, and he knew that he would come in cheaper than an outside vendor. And he made his presentation, and he didn't get the job. They gave it to somebody else, and not only did they give it to somebody else, they didn't give him the opportunity to counter propose, like to say, okay, is it too high? Can you come down to X amount? They didn't do that either. So he got really upset, and this resident manager who was at this building, and it was a big project. We're talking about a building that was, if I recall correctly, it's like 75 units.
Wow. And
it was a project that I thought, it's gonna, having an outside company come in to do this work would have been very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I was also thinking, the super is gonna get this, but he didn't, and that really, really upset him. And
I'd be upset too.
yeah, and what happened was interesting. Afterwards, I guess there was issues with access given to the contractor, or allowing, like using the common bathroom, the super's bathroom, for the workers of the contractor who was hired. They started getting feedback that he was being very difficult in allowing this to happen, allowing the contractors guys to get access to the different parts of the building that they had to leave places to permit them to leave their tools in certain places in the building that would have helped the contractor when they're doing this project. And so they felt that this was sort of a passive aggressive behavior that the super was showing because he was upset that he didn't get the job. And in this case, there have been cases like similar cases throughout my time in this industry, but a lot of them are, there may be alternate explanations for that. But in this particular building, when I spoke to the super, yeah, it was obvious to me that he was upset too, that he was purposefully doing a lot of these things to, as a outward feeling of, or he was doing these things because he was upset at how the board overlooked him. And like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I would feel really betrayed too.
Right.
Especially if it was a board member that I had been super nice to. But, being passive aggressive is not going to help you.
Right.
I mean, if they chose it, all right, forget about it. Now you're back to being super. You actually offered a bid to the board as a kind of like a contractor, not as a building super. So if you didn't get chosen, all right, oh, too bad. They lost a chance, but get your feelings off. If there's gonna be contractors working in that unit, be nice to them. What's so bad about being helpful to them?
Right.
Because that passive aggressiveness, you being upset and angry at the board and the contractors, it's just going to give you a really bad impression.
Right.
And it's not your job to compete with that vendor. You are taking care of the building. Mm-hmm. Don't forget about that. Right.
So remember the larger reason of why you're there.
Yeah.
And I think this stems from probably a thinking from by the super that I think could be not only wrong but harmful to him, which is that thinking that things will be easier because he's a super, or that things will be easier with getting these jobs because he is the super, or the sense that the expectation that these will come easily to him, these opportunities will come easily to him because he is a super. And I think we can all understand why he thinks that, but I think we have to step back and go back into ourselves and fix that expectation to say that into something different, and to say that look at them as a client. Mm-hmm. Look at them as a client that have other choices out there. And it may not be just be the price. It might be something else. The contractor may be a friend of the board member, or someone that the board member really wants a board member who has weight, who is able to persuade the rest of the board members. Maybe he has a special desire to put that vendor in there for special ethical reasons. I'm not saying that it's an unethical
introduction. I mean, it could be just a matter of taste or style.
Oh, it could have been style. Yeah, maybe there was something with that vendor's presentation that really clicked with the board members and what they wanted.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were linking this to a future job, which they knew the RM could not do. Mm-hmm. And so they knew that they could get a kind of a wholesale full package wholesale discount. So there could be other reasons out there, but it is important to step back and to say, like you said, what's your larger role at the building? Let's step back and go back to the purpose for you to be there. Your purpose is not to get these jobs. Your purpose is to take care of the building and to facilitate the purposes of the board,
Mm-hmm.
the goals of the board, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In my opinion, this is just personal, but I would be thankful that the board member, actually gave me a chance
Oh,
to
that's
bid for
interesting.
it.
Yeah.
You know,
Then that could actually, that's a great. Although the super will think afterwards, he'll be like, they only asked me just to get a baseline of what it should cost. You know?
well, that's you can think it that way, but I choose not to think that
Right,
way.
right, right. It's all about how you think inside,
Yeah.
right? Attitude is all about how you think inside. And if you can see it positive in a positive light, it'll show on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you want it to really click. But if you see it negatively, like I just did, then you are going to feel bitter, and you won't be as helpful. And the other thing is, like, look at it as a lesson in becoming a better salesperson. Like, when they say every no every no that you get leads to a yes, right? But it doesn't work if you don't try to improve yourself every time you get a no, right? Every time you fail to get a job, if you don't go back to the drawing board to try to figure out what you did wrong or what could have been the issue, and then you come back stronger, you're not going to eventually get that yes, that approval, you know?
Exactly.
So you want to use this as a chance to really look into what you could have done better. Maybe it was your presentation, maybe it was your pitch, and then try to learn from that. Just get better. If it's not your fault, because maybe it was a board member that wanted, it was something special that's out of your control, then so be it. You have to, you should find a way to make peace with that so that you can move on.
Right.
In a productive way. So that for sure is something that doesn't work. So I also have a third. I think we went to this is number 3. Is when a super says, I just can't work with that person. I'm not working with him. I refuse to work with him. That becomes a problem. And I know it sounds a bit outlandish, but I just saw that recently,
Yeah.
where he told the manager, I'm not working with him. I'm just, and he came up with a bunch of reasons why. And the manager just ended up saying, doesn't matter what you want. That's what the board wants. We just want to get this going. And it's still going on now. And I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but I think that really impacted the feeling that the super was the super was professional, because they were like, okay, he obviously can't work with them. Now we got to think about hiring someone else on the outside to oversee this project, because they wanted to use this guy. And then they had to feel that this RM could be a liability by being an obstacle in their goal to getting things done. I think in this case kind of stuck out, because it really is. I think the reason why the super didn't want to work with this vendor was that I think there was a bad interaction before, a couple years before, and they had ended up having an argument or a fight or something, and the super and then I think at that time the board may have taken sides as to who the person who their favorite person was, and it ended up that he ended up getting hurt by that. So when the vendor's name came up again, his immediate response was, "I'm not working with him. You can find somebody else," or something like that. And I think that, and it's hard because in this case, I put this towards the bottom because because actually when we were talking, it was from least important to the most important. So we're heading over, and I thought I put this high up there because um, a lot of times in this industry we don't, and maybe elsewhere too, we don't want to work with people that we don't like.
Yeah, I'm just getting stressed even imagining about
Right.
this. It's so hard. It's
Yeah.
so stressful.
Imagine you're forced to work with someone you don't like, and that's super hard, right? Because
Yeah.
all of your negativity can come out so easily in that environment. And what do? You know, what do you do when you're forced to work with a contractor who you don't like, or another, I don't know. I mean,
It could be even a board member that you don't like.
it could be a board member, it could be a porter, it could be, you know, someone that you just don't like, you just don't want to work with them. And especially if you're forced to collaborate on a project, that could be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that it may, as hard as it is, it might be going back to what you're saying, that remember what your larger role here is, to focus on what, you know, your job is to make sure that these things happen for the building in a way that make sure that your primary interest is for the building, making
Right.
sure that the things that they need are getting done. Doesn't matter if the person that you have to work with is someone you don't like, you can't stand, that you despise. If you can't work with somebody, if you can't find a way to work with somebody that they need to have part of that project, the same project, that will impact the impression that you give that you're able to work with others. They're going to always watch out and say, think of you as someone that's difficult to work with. They may not look at the other person as difficult to work with.
Exactly.
They may look at you as the difficult one to work with.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I'm just getting depressed thinking about this. But if I were in that situation, I would think of this as challenge. You know what?
Ooh.
If I can make him into like my side of person, if
Yeah.
I can work and collaborate, or not even that, just get along with this guy.
Right. Find a way to find common ground to get along with together.
Yeah, or just find a way to exist in this world together.
Okay.
In the building. You know what? It's in the future, if I have this kind of experience, when I meet someone that I just you know, like I just cannot.
Yeah.
This experience is gonna help me a lot, tremendously.
Right.
You know, I've done this before. You know, remember that vendor? You know, this guy even tried to put me into the spot, but you know,
Throw me
like
under
in
the
the
bus,
end,
right.
yeah, in the end, I made this person a friend of mine.
Right. Right.
And I know how to do this.
Right.
So it all depends on you, because that vendor's not going to change, the board is not going to change, the situation is not going to change, and what can you do?
Right. Right. I mean, a lot of this has to come with that serenity prayer I was talking about, like things you can't change, right? I mean, we'll look it up. But things, you know, you hope that God gives you the courage to change the things that you can, and for you to let go of the things that you can't change. And then you ask Him for the wisdom to know the difference between the two, so that you don't waste time on things that you can't change.
Exactly.
You
And
focus on the things that you can change.
yeah, I totally agree. And there may be cases when you're working with this guy's trying to betray me again. You know, there could be similar
Oh yeah,
situations.
he could be a jerk,
Yeah.
or a serial liar,
Man.
or a troublemaker. I mean, there could be, and no one else is seeing that except you.
Yeah.
So
and
that could be. It is tough. Yeah.
yeah, in this case, you know, I think you have to do a lot of thinking. You have to keep calm. Always remember to keep calm. And sometimes it's not about right or wrong, but
Right.
sometimes how it's just like the other topic, being flexible.
Yeah.
Being flexible, and maybe sometimes, you know, giving away your pride.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's okay.
Right.
And especially if you're a part-time super who wants to grow, or even a full-time super who wants to get a job in a bigger building, more crews, you have to be able to be a leader.
Right.
And if you can't stand a person and say, "Oh, I'm not gonna work with this guy," you can't lead a 20 guy crew or 30 people.
Right.
You just can't do that. You have to learn.
So the flip side of not being able to work with anyone is finding ways to work with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're known as a person that's able to bring people together, no matter how different they are or how difficult they are to work with, that's a huge value.
Right.
And that's where buildings love to have RMs, supers that are problem solvers, that bring people together.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the recap. That's the exact point that I wanted to make.
Well, it's a rare occasion that I'm the I'm the person that recaps. I'm the one that keeps on talking on and on. So I'm glad to change that role. Maybe my attitude today. That's my positive attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's a great point. And that also, it's, you know, when you find yourself in that very difficult situation, if there's any board members listening, if your super can't get along with them, try to use a different vendor.
Mm-hmm.
Try to use it. There's a lot of vendors out there, but if you hopefully, because you're making it very difficult for him to do his work when this person is someone that he doesn't like and he can't change that. But to the super that's going through that, just keep up keep positive. Find some way to maintain that professionalism, and just plug forward.
Yeah, and a lot of cases, if you're nice to a person, that person will be nice to you.
Yeah.
You can't spit on a smiley face.
There are people that do.
But
yeah.
Let's
But
be positive.
Yeah, let's be positive, and I mean, we'll just leave it at that. And if anything happens, and if you think you're experiencing something that's really really difficult, and that you believe is something that can't, that you can't change, reach out to us. Maybe we can help you. We would love to see if this is something that we can help you navigate, because your career may be at stake and your reputation is at stake as someone that is either difficult to work with or that's easy to work with. And it's two totally different attitudes. So here at example, the final example, which is probably the most problematic attitude that can cause problems or friction in your workplace. And this is something that happened to a super in a pretty large building. And basically, he had trouble getting along with his staff. He had a staff of about 12 people. He was able to, he had trouble getting along with them. And what I think also, that's a problem in and of itself, but he had big issues working with the manager, building manager. He had supporters on the board, which may have caused him to act like this, but he didn't get along with the manager, and it came to a point where when the manager wanted something from him, or when the manager felt that the super wasn't doing his job correctly, and came in, called him to the office to ask him how he could help, or how he could, how he can help. The RM, the super, got really angry, and his response was always, "I'm the professional. You aren't. Don't tell me how to do my job." And I think that
like, you're always in the office, and I'm always in the field. I know what's the
Yes,
best for the building.
exactly. So he was kind of saying that I'm in the office. I'm the professional. You know, you're here in the office. Um, you're behind the computer all the time. Don't tell me that I'm doing something wrong. You know, and um, that was a huge problem for the manager because he felt that he couldn't um, change his behavior or change the things that he felt that he was doing wrong. He felt the super was doing wrong, and it ended up eventually it ended up that the RM was lost his job there, but that was a big part of it where anything that he felt was criticism for the work that he was doing, he lashed out and said that this is, that they didn't, no one knew what they were talking about. That, often he used to say to the manager also like, "You're not the boss of me," because he knew that the board ultimately supported him. So I'll have to listen to you. And I think that was an extreme case of an extreme case of where the super was clearly seen to have a negative attitude by everyone. It was the manager, the staff didn't like him or respect him, and he ended up losing his job.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have the supporters from the board, if you're the angry one, they will see, I mean, I like this guy, but it does seem like he's kind of arrogant.
Right.
They will see that.
Right. This might be an extreme example, but
I mean,
every super, every super will be in a position where he's criticized for his work. The super may feel that he's being criticized for something that the person who's criticizing doesn't know about. He may feel that he knows more than the person who's criticizing him, and that he feels either disrespected or feels that he's being blamed for something that he's not responsible for. So how do you, and this happens, it doesn't have to get this extreme, but all of those moments, how you react to that or how you respond to that can give the right impression to the building or a wrong impression. And of course, in this case, the RO was saying, "I'm the pro. I don't have to listen to you, and you don't tell me how to do my job." That came off as arrogance. That came off as not open to criticism, defensiveness. So how would you, having gone through all of the examples right now, how would you handle, if you were the super, how would you handle that?
That's a great question. I mean, again, I feel for the super. And, it could be true that the super is right. The manager doesn't know what he or she's talking about.
Right.
And I know. But since we're talking about attitude, even if it's true, you always have to be open to other opinions. You are not the only one who's in the building, who's running the building. A manager his or her role is very important too. Mm-hmm. So respect that too. If you want to be respected, respect the other person's opinion too.
Right.
And it's really hard. The building super job is really hard because it has to do with a lot of human relationships, right? Mm-hmm. In this case, I first of all don't flip out. That's even if you think the other person's suggestion is just hideous, just listen to it. That's a big part. Like, for example, if a child says, "Oh, Dad, you're doing this wrong. This is not right," but you don't flip out to your child. It's like,
You would feel upset. You'd be like,
Yeah.
what do you know?
Yeah.
You're a kid and I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what I need to do. And then
Exactly.
you end up saying, well, I'm your dad, so I'm gonna do what I want. And maybe that's the situation there. The super feels that he's much more wise than the building manager. And it could be the case. I mean, building manager may not know
Yeah.
much. But I think it's, you know, feeling that indignant inside, feeling that your ego has been bruised inside, it's going to cause you to lash out. And that could really hurt the relationship that you have with the manager and with others around you. It may have happened to the staff where he was saying, you know, don't tell me what to do. Maybe they had some suggestions or recommendations for him, and he thought, who are you to tell me? You're a porter, right? And I'm a super. Who are you to tell me what to do? You know, you do your job. I'm going to do mine, and there's no. And that's I think that is that could be a problem, right? Not keeping yourself open to recommendations from others, being turning criticism into something that could be positive, that you can learn from. And I just think one of the ways that, and it could be a situation where, let's say a shareholder is just upset at how you handle something, and that they're just lashing out at you. And you know, your ability to respond in each of these situations in a positive way will impact how they think about you in terms of how professional you are. And so, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's you don't have to say, oh, this was totally my fault, and apologize. But I think there are different ways to say the same message.
Right.
No, I did my I mean, for these reasons, always have reasons why.
Right.
For these reasons, this was the choice of the method that I did, and I believe this was the best choice that I could have made.
Yeah.
I think you can totally say that.
You could say that. But there might be like someone who's like, no, you're wrong. This is the better way, and you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, in this case, I would be, of course, furious. I'm a very
Pissed
emotional
off.
person.
You would take this Mr. I'm always right. You would bring this mug and say, make sure it says Mr. always right. And you would say, look at my cup. Look what I'm drinking out of. I'm entitled to this.
Yeah, and it's
Right,
so
it's hard.
frustrating. But in this case, I mean, as a building super, it's your job to maintain a building in a technical sense. Like, you know, the boiler is running well, you know, things are not broken. But it's also your job to maintain a building between people too. With
Right.
your staff, you and your board members, you and the manager, and maybe sometimes between manager and board. So focus on your job. When you hear a complaint like this is my opinion, just my personal opinion, but this guy's never gonna agree with me. Then, you know what, just, all right, I think you have a point too. Next time I'll make sure this, I talk to you before this happens.
Right.
I'm sorry. I mean, just feel sorry that this person is feeling that way. He's just angry.
Right.
No, I'm sorry about that. I did my best, but next time, I'll try to do it better, or I'll let you know of certain things.
Right.
know,
Right.
Just, a lot of times when the board or someone's really mad, it's that person's super mad at that moment.
Right.
Just so maybe focus on not telling how right you are, but try to calm that person down first.
Yeah. You know what I find out that works almost every time, and I think that this should be something that super should jot down, is just ask, how can I fix this?
Yeah, yeah.
How can we go forward? What do you need me to do to make this better? And they'll come out, they'll stop, and they'll come out with some things that they think, or I think the immediate effect of that will be the other person calms down, and they say, all right, so he's open to trying to help me. Let me explain what the things, maybe let me think through and try to come up with some things that will help ease my pain in my mind. And I think that helps heal the situation.
Right.
Even if that person's wrong, even if the other person is completely wrong, they don't know what they're talking about, at least you get to hear from them what they think will help solve the problem and how you can help as a super solve their problem. And later on, you can always come back with a report that says, this is why the other person's wrong. But at least you'll know a solid road out of that situation. And it takes a lot of practice to get to a level where when you're dealing with someone who's very emotional, who thinks that they're right, or at least is criticizing you, it takes practice to jump in and just say, okay, tell me what you want. Tell me how to make this right. Tell me what you want me to do. And so practice it. Practice that phrase over and over. And any situation that you find yourself in, that statement will help you find your way out of that quickly. And of course, saying I'm sorry, not saying I'm sorry, but your method of saying, what was that? Like, how, your method was more of kind of listening to them.
Yeah, just listen to them. They want to be listened. A lot of times they just want to be listened.
Right. So it's actually just an extension of your thing.
Yeah.
You're just being more affirmative. What do you call that? You're being more action-oriented when you ask them, what can I do? Right.
So this kind of, we talked about a lot of things for the last example. What could be like a real situation of this? For me, I kind of thought of this situation. There was, let's say there's a multi-level leak.
Right.
And you had to open up a hole.
Right.
Without letting the resident know, shareholder know, and because it was emergency.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I
not
get it.
like it's.
No one's gonna be happy, but yeah.
Yeah, and you had to leave your tools because.
You forgot to cover their clothes in the closet.
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens.
I feel bad, but it happens. Yeah.
And you did your best, and like any plumber would say, yes, you had to open up that hole. Regardless
or even if you didn't, I mean, if you made your best judgment and it was wrong,
yeah,
that's still okay, because you're there not to be perfect but to use your judgment.
Yeah, but in this case, let's say everything was just right about what you did, but the board member is complaining about, I told you before, don't come into my apartment
I see,
before letting me know. I told you so many times. I mean, you ruined everything. You left all the tools here. I have a huge hole in my bathroom. What are you, like? I'm paying you like this. I shouldn't be treated this way.
Right.
Like there could be a lot of complaints like this.
Right.
I think I've actually seen this kind of behavior from some of the boards.
Right.
In my experience, but in that case. That could be like this case, right? The last example.
Right.
So that, like, okay, don't focus on what you did for the problem.
Right.
Focus on like what this board member is mad at.
Right.
And it is unfortunate that this guy's feeling bad.
Right.
So just really understand why he would be feeling this way, why this board member is feeling this way. I'm sorry, you left a huge hole without letting you know.
Right.
I mean, that could be.
You know what I like? Yeah. You know what I like actually the phrase of let me know how to make things. What do I need to do to fix this, or let me know what I need to do to get this moving. Is because there's a point at which someone just wants to talk about how they've been wronged.
Exactly.
And it's part of the grieving process, right? Getting off their chest. But as a super, you don't want to hear that. You want to move to the action phase. You want to be like, all right, I get it. I'm sorry. Your clothes are ruined. Let me know what to do next. Tell me what to do. And it puts them into a problem solving. The person who's upset, it puts them into a problem solving mode as well. It forces them to go, okay, what do I need to do to get this better?
Right.
All right, bring my clothes to the dry cleaner and get it all done. Clean it up and cover my clothes for now. And it forces them to focus on a forward-thinking mindset than to be stuck in a complaining mindset. Once again, that complaining mindset is completely understandable. You're surprised, you're shocked, you're upset, and you want to talk it over and over and talk about how upset you are. The only thing is that it doesn't help the situation.
Right.
And you want to get everything moving. And your job as a super, sometimes when everyone's paralyzed in this position, is to jump in and move things along.
Yeah. So that's really hard life of a super. This is why it's a tricky job. It's not easy. It's not only taking care of the garbage, fixing things.
Yeah.
So many components go into as a job of being a building super.
Yes.
Everyone should feel super proud.
Yeah, I definitely think so too, and we could definitely talk more about how the problem to communicate. It'll come up again, and when we talk about communication, how the top 5 ways that communication goes really bad.
Right.
But we'll talk about those things.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about what kind of attitude.
Right.
Attitude is way of thinking, also how you react to.
Right.
Not react, but how you behave.
Exactly.
Based on that emotions and thoughts. We talked about a lot of different scenarios where it could get complicated.
Right.
And maybe that you need some of the practice and experiences to develop a very positive and maybe a more mature sense of attitude. So, I hope this episode has been helpful to many of these people.
Some of them they went into a hot seat. They got into a hot seat because of it, but maybe it's too late for them. But hopefully for those of us in the future, as we move forward.
And also, it's even if you lost your job, it's never over.
That's true too.
It's never over. And
it's the beginning of the next phase.
Of course. Yeah.
That's a positive. That's a positive attitude, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's always up to you. Attitude
is
something that you decide. You can decide on which attitude to take.
Right.
So,
it's hard, but it's possible.
It is. It is truly possible. And having a good positive attitude will take you to a bigger career, meeting more new people.
Yeah, you want to get
super.
Yeah, definitely it translates in value to higher pay.
Different level of super.
Right, and also buildings that have supers with great attitudes don't want them to leave. That's where you can say, well, can I get a raise? And they'll say yes. Yep. So you want to be that person. You want to be that person. And there's a lot of great attitudes, supers with great attitudes out there. I've met them. So keep it up, and
you'll be happy.
Right.
Having a positive attitude, everything is an opportunity to learn and grow.
Right.
Yeah. So it's up to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Appreciate it.
Thank you, James.
Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.